We will see more changes in the energy industry in the next 10 years than we've seen in the last 100. And I think Exelon has an opportunity not only to be part of this transition, but to lead it. Christoph.
Calvin, how are you?
I'm good. Welcome to Spring Gardens.
Thank you so much. You are the biggest utility company in the United States. Tell us a bit more about the business.
People connect with their utility by their local utility. Exelon being that holding company, we provide resources and allow that local utility to do what it does best.
This is a symbolic place for Exelon, but I understand it's also a very important place for you personally.
It is. I was CEO for BG for almost 6 years. And it does mean something to me because it was my first opportunity to get to understand what a local utility means to its customers and how that connection goes much deeper than a monthly bill. This parking deck is being powered by solar. We're charging our electric fleet, and we're trying to lead by example with the electrification effort. 30% of our fleet is going to be electrified by 2025, 50% by 2030. And this is just a hub of where that activity is taking place.
Basically, in a place where we see the heritage and the future of Exelon.
And that's exactly what we were trying to create. We wanted to let people know we're so proud of our tradition, but we have to keep moving forward. And the electrification of our vehicles is just an example of how we keep pushing the envelope, and we're part of the solution to combat climate change.
So it was late 2022, Calvin, that you got the phone call that you're going to be the next CEO of Exelon.
Right.
After 14 years with the company, what were your thoughts after you hung up on that phone call?
Excitement and a gratefulness, but yet let's get to work. Because I was chief operating officer, I knew the people and I knew the culture and I knew where we needed to go. You had two very distinct cultures. An operational culture, meaning those men and women who are running the business each and every day, and a corporate culture. And if you're sitting in a corporate job and you don't think of the operating companies as your client, you shouldn't be in your job. And what I was trying to do over the last couple of years prior to becoming CEO was instill that mindset. And I knew who was getting it and who wasn't getting it. So when I became CEO, it was a matter of giving them that opportunity to make that transition. And if they could not, we had to decide on something else.
The moment you appoint your team as the new incoming CEO is one of these moments of truth. And actually, it's so important strategically, operationally, culturally. How did you go about that?
One of my strengths is building a team. I believe I can recognize people's strengths and weaknesses and put them in positions where they can thrive. Every leader is entitled to put together his or her team. Doesn't mean anything against the people who were previously in the job. They just may not see it the same way you do. And it's incumbent upon that leader, me in this case, to make those changes and do it in a respectful manner. It hasn't been easy because every time you change a person on that team, you change the dynamics of that team. So you almost have to start rebuilding trust all over again. And I think that's the most important part about any team is building trust amongst each other. And again, there was a trust built with the operating companies because we had been working together for a while. And they had to build a trust in the corporate team to say, are we all on the same page? Are we working to achieve the same goals? Not just financial goals, but overall company goals. And that was very different.
Was there a moment where you had your team together and you said, wow, this is the moment where I see I made the right calls?
It feels like it's been indoctrination by fire, right? One big issue after the other. What I've loved most, though, is how each of them have shown up in times of crisis. Because you really get to see what type of leader someone is when things are going rough. End of last year, we had a regulatory ruling in Illinois that, for all practical purposes, came out of nowhere and was detrimental to the business. So detrimental that the order came out on December 14th, and on December 15th, we had lost $6 billion in market cap from that ruling. So I called the CEO of ComEd. I said, look, you know you're the right person for the job, but this is going to define your leadership as CEO of ComEd. How you handle this with your team members is going to dictate the next steps over the next several years and how you and this team is going to show up. And to a T, he took that and he immediately got to work. That's when I knew the hire was right. If I'm in a trench, I want him next to me because he was not going to shy away from what needs to be done.
Fast forward a year. What did you learn in that year? And I mean, how did you also look at the dynamics in the team, the individuals, etc.?
When you're growing up in your career, you think, once I become CEO, I'm going to have all this time. And you recognize when you become CEO, you have no time.
You have no time at all.
And you don't even control your own calendar.
Yeah.
You know, they tell you where, and then you, at 4 o'clock, you realize, I haven't eaten lunch today, right? So after that first year, I understood, okay, where am I adding value to the business? I restructured and made a COO because I was doing everything. I was still running the utility business, still running corporate, still doing, but I needed someone to think of the operations each and every day. You worry about everything and you have to realize that I can transfer the worry.
Absolutely.
And it's also the hardest thing because you know where the accountability sits.
Yeah.
And when you have a high level of accountability built into yourself, you want to own it, control it, but you can't function like that long term. And you have to put the team in place.
It's a period of unprecedented change for the energy industry. And the same is true for Exelon, of course. If you look forward for the next 5 years or even beyond that, how do you see the company positioned and how does your leadership team impact that?
Yeah. Oh, it's a great question. I think we will see more changes in the energy industry in the next 10 years than we've seen in the last 100.
I believe that right away. Yeah.
And I think Exelon has an opportunity not only to be part of this transition, but to lead it. We serve some of the largest cities in the United States, and we're investing just over the next few years, $35 billion in capital. We're going to invest in every community that we serve, period. We're going to put equity into this transformation. I cannot serve the second ward of DC, one of the wealthiest, any different than I serve the 8th ward of DC, one of the more under-resourced. You have to serve them the same way and give them opportunities to make this transition.
You've been a champion for diversity, equity, and inclusion for many years, and very vocally so. What role did diversity play when you assembled your core leadership team?
For me, DEI is so core to our business and why we're successful. I have never said to anyone, you need to hire a woman for that job or a person of color for that job. You always hire the best person. But your slate, one, needs to be diverse, and the people interviewing that slate need to be diverse. And guess what happens, Christoph? You hire the best people and you get a lot more diversity on your leadership team. And that's exactly what's happened.
Calvin, thank you so much for this conversation. Thanks for the candor. It was wonderful to see you.
My pleasure. Thank you, Christoph.